Hello.
Hi,
Nice to see you. How you doing?
good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Oh,
So I'm going to share a little bit of data around the current state of the market. So my background is I've spent 20 years now largely supporting European businesses from startup to scale up and then up to enterprise level. And quite frankly, there's probably never been a better time to become to move into the tech industry. So I'll dive straight in. If you have questions, put them in the chat box. And I'll try and answer as many as I can as we work through this. I'm a little bit of a tech novice myself, so if my slides don't tend to work, if someone just pops a message in, that'd be brilliant. So let's start with where we are. So the tech economy is currently massively under resourced across Europe. So the EU state that we require in the region of around 20 million specialists within digital skills by the year 2030. And we currently only have 9 million. So there's effectively 11 million people that we need to train, upskill, and create experts within just to fulfill the baseline need of what's required over the next 7 years, which is huge. Only around 54% of Europeans aged between 16 and 74 have at least basic digital skills. So that's even down to not necessarily coding per se. This is just fundamental how to use technology platforms. And overall, it costs the economy, depending on which report you look at, anywhere between 50 and 75 billion euros. You can see from the chart on the right that on average, over 50% of European countries and the organizations within those countries struggle to attract digital talent. So there is a huge demand for skills and a huge demand for workers within this space. Female representation is growing, but it's still nowhere near the levels that it should be. The UK leads Europe and actually the globe entirely at around 31% female representation. The US is second at around 28%. And whilst we've seen significant growth, so compared to 10 years ago, there's now 68% more women within tech. That only actually turns the dial by around 2% over the last 10 years. Germany, France, Spain, the Netherlands, Italy are all increasing female representation, but there's still a huge gulf and a significant amount of work that needs to be done. Now, if you look at current education outputs, around 54% of students in STEM subjects are female, but for whatever reason, we're not making that bridge between academia and employment. And that's something in vacancies that effectively we're going to have over the next 7 years. So programs such as career transitions, return to work cohorts, cross training, academies, and so forth are all really trying to push to drastically increase the number of tech skills and disciplines we have available within the European economy. So one of the big reasons why most people consider a digital career is, well, there's a number of benefits I'll come on to, but the main one is reward. So salaries by country are typically higher by around 40% than the total country average. Average software engineering salary across the whole of Europe is currently just over 53,000. Sorry, currently below 53,000 euros. But it's not uncommon to see senior and lead engineers, upwards of 80 to 120,000 euros on average. Certainly, we've seen significant growth in recent years. There's a lot of media talk about big company layoffs, and there's certainly a trend of the larger US businesses. But coming back to this huge gulf and hole of talent that we have, the demand continues to outstrip the supply, and as a result, it tends to be a market that is led by the individual. So entry-level salaries may be slightly less than this. These are the market norms, but at the same time, we see the average usually coming in at 2 to 3 years worth of experience. By tech, so one of the benefits of a career in tech is that you're constantly learning. One of the challenges is that you're constantly afraid of your skills being outdated. So if we rewind this graph to probably 10 years ago, it looked completely different. Even 3 years ago, it looked very different. So Golang and Rust have grown significantly in the last 3 years. Rust itself has tripled in demand since 2020. As you can see, there's a circa 3 years ago, there was 600,000 Rust developers globally. It's currently 2.2 million, and that number is growing rapidly. There's currently in the region of around expected 3.5 million Rust developers required globally at the moment, which again just shows that the demand completely outstrips the supply. So not only is it a case of choosing to be a software engineer, but also which technologies you choose to focus on will directly impact your earning potential as well. Similarly, we've seen huge growth in Java, huge growth in Ruby, Python due to its application with data engineering, certainly around ML and AI platforms, and also Golang, which has seen considerable growth. Well, it's expected to see considerable growth, around 25% over the next 3 years. So what are the benefits? So we take a survey of around 5,000 individuals every year and ask them what the perks of being a software engineer are. And the key 6 themes that came out of our most recent are these on screen. So due to the demand growing, it means that there's more opportunities available. People have greater choices. They're not restricted to location, they're not restricted to skill set, industry, company, and as a result, more opportunity gives them the chance to move into new sectors, new career paths, new locations, and so forth. Software engineering typically scores in the top 3 of job satisfaction surveys globally, partly for reasons such as flexibility, autonomy, but generally speaking, we tend to find that those in digital careers are largely happier than those not, and certainly those in software engineering are some of the happiest people within the tech community. Touched upon flexibility, since 2020, we've seen a number of organizations move to remote working, but more interestingly, we've seen a trend where 96% of the software engineers that we have deployed into organizations have all benefited from some form of remote working. Around 40% of those are fully remote, and around 30% of those have a work from anywhere policy. So they're complete digital nomads. Continuous learning, as we touched upon, I've never met a single software engineer, and I'm sure the other presenters that are from technical disciplines will echo this sentiment, that there's never an opportunity to continue to learn and grow. It does support creativity. Maybe software engineering isn't seen in the same light as digital marketing, but for those that are taking a concept or an idea and turning that into a user-friendly application that can be used by millions of people, it certainly does lean on people to be creative. And the long-term prospects, I think we've certainly seen a trend of software engineers moving into senior and lead roles. We definitely see the trend of former engineers moving into CTO and CIO positions. Founders of startups and scale-ups tend to come from an engineering background. If we look at kind of mainstream media, I don't think a day goes by where Elon Musk doesn't appear somewhere on my news feeds. He himself was once upon a time an engineer. So if you're looking for a career that not only offers you immediate benefit, but can offer you longer term prospects as well, then it's a really easy decision to make, I think. And then the desirable skills outside of engineering. So yes, understanding how to code, understanding the technical side is really important, but we tend to find that most organizations and employers are looking for a number of softer skills as well. So when making applications, I think there's a couple of tips that we could offer. Firstly is to make sure that you're listing these desirable skills as a standard within your profile, cover letter, LinkedIn, CV, and so forth. That you're clear in terms of how you communicate, that you can give examples as to how you've built relationships, maybe how you've managed stakeholders, how you've engaged with customers. For problem solving, we recommend referencing some examples as to case studies as to where you've overcome a challenge or an obstacle. We would recommend using the STAR method, which looks at the situation. So, what was there when you were presented with the problem? The task, so how you broke that down into a series of objectives or actions. The action that you undertook and how that worked or did not. What the result was and how that benefited either the organisation, the stakeholder, the company. And the final part is the lessons learned. So the ability to demonstrate that you can reflect on that and recognise what went right, what went wrong, and how you can improve. Teamwork. Certainly, engineering is not a role of isolation. You'll be part of a team, you'll be part of tribes, you'll be part of squads. And as a result, collaboration is absolutely key. So whether or not you can demonstrate that through your profiles and CVs as paired exercises, whether or not you can demonstrate how you build relationships and work with others across different time zones, different cultures. Remote working, certainly, as we touched upon for digital nomads, means that they may work in isolation. That doesn't mean that you're not part of a team. Productivity. One of the key things that we tend to look for is individuals that not only can write great code, but are productive in the way they do so. So what are the structures, the frameworks, the tools that you use to drive productivity? What are the efficiencies that you've created by doing things in certain ways? How much time or effort has been saved through the actions that you took? And finally, creativity. Employers look for individuals that can not only just code, but can also actually think and think creatively and innovatively. So what new concepts have you brought? What new tools have you recommended? What new ways of working could you introduce? Effectively, what employers are looking for is not only people that have great technical capability, but who can bring thought leadership, who can bring collaboration with their existing teams, their suppliers, their customers, and fundamentally who can solve problems. And then onto remote interviews. As you can see, around 80% of our customers include remote interviewing as part of standard of their process. And just a couple of top tips that people maybe miss as a result of that. Firstly, silence your notifications. There's so many times that people are interviewed, and I've foolishly not done it myself today. So you might be able to hear my Teams pinging away in the background, and it's a distraction naturally to anyone. Dress professionally. We've all heard scare stories. I've seen them firsthand of where someone's on a video interview, they stand up to answer the door, they're in their board shorts whilst wearing a shirt. Treat an interview, whether or not it's remote or not, as you would do in person. Keep your background simple. Use a digital one if you can. Try to remove clutter and distraction. What you don't want is if you're in a busy environment, if you're in a coffee shop, you're in a library and you're undertaking an interview, you've got noise and people moving around in the background will take the focus off you and what you're saying. Check your lighting. Certainly make sure that the contrast is okay, you're not backlit, and so forth, so the interviewer can see you clearly. Move your mobile with kind of similar to notifications. You don't want distractions. You definitely don't want your mobile going off in front of you. And certainly it's a real faux pas to be looking at it whilst you're in discussion. And test your technology. Similarly today, I've checked 3 times that I knew I was able to use the platform and that I could load my presentation. Similarly, we'd recommend doing so for any form of video interview. Certainly, if you're used to using Zoom and you get a Google Hangout, or you're used to using Teams and you're using a different platform, it's worthwhile just becoming a fay with how each one operates. And that's all from me. So hopefully that gives you an indicator as to where in the world is currently hiring, where some of the regions with the highest demand are, where the highest average salaries are, and which technologies you might want to consider if things like earning potential are one of the driver. Also, in summary, why and some of the benefits of becoming a software engineer and why it's important, and how it could benefit you both in the short and near term as well as for longer career prospects. And if anyone would like any more advice, guidance on interviewing, preparation, how to secure a role, then please visit rullion.co.uk for more information.
Hi, hello. So I actually have a question for you, but I'm also going to wait for other questions if there are. When you say video interviews, do you mean interview with someone or like recorded interviews? Because I know there are many different kinds.
Yeah, sure. So I think the advice is that I presented is mainly for a, an interactive interview, but the same rules would apply to it for video recording as well. I think there's a huge increase of pre-recorded interviews and the application of those,
Mhm.
but we would suggest treating it as you would a formal interview.
Okay.
It's first impressions count, and human behaviour, as much as we'd all like to assume has completely evolved, hasn't quite. So, as much as I've seen examples where somebody responds to a pre-recorded interview and they're walking the dog, and whilst it's quite cute that they're walking the dog, does it give the best first impression? Maybe not in the eyes of all hirers.
Um, I think my internet is working now. Yes.
Yeah, you could.
I think I got cut off a little bit. Like you were saying, of technology, maybe mine wasn't the best. Um, but also another question that I have, when software engineering engineers are applying for jobs, um, are they asked to do like case studies?
Less likely. More likely is there'll be some form of online assessment. So
Okay.
there's a number of different platforms that companies use now that provide, whether or not those are traditional tests, so kind of multiple choice, whether or not they're exercises where they ask someone to write sample code, or whether they are paired with an employee of the organization to observe how someone would handle a problem in a real world situation. So there's a lot. If those watching would like more information on that, if you simply look at online technology assessments, if you pop that into Google, there's tons of different providers, and most of them offer the opportunity to try one and for yourself.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I think we don't have any other questions for now. So thank you so much, Chris, for coming and talking and showing all of the data. I think was very insightful. Um, I think everyone wants to see it again, but thank you. And so I'm going to introduce